a cord of the legs to the waist, so that the individual, does not have free movement of their legs. So it's securing them again, usually by their ankles. If you're prone, bringing that up to your waist and securing it. The maximal restraint technique, or the hobble, though, if it's used,
just watching the George Floyd
has to
case.
Respond to the scene.
Heavy stuff, pretty heavy.
You cannot transport anyone prone in that position due to the risk of.
I'm trying to share my screen so we can see this.
And so, but that is the counselor. That would be my understanding of the MRT, or the maximal restraint technique.
So you talked a little bit in terms of the use of force, how officers are kind of reevaluating their use of force from time to time, right? They should be, at least.
We're looking at this on Pluto TV. If you don't have Pluto TV, you can check this out.
And then decide, hey, we know, and then later decide not to use it.
I find it very interesting in America how we make excuses for officers who break the law.
Counselor, with some
there's
clarity,
no excuses about that.
What I mean by that is, if you were to,
this gentleman here is actually Derek,
on their stomach on the ground and pavement,
who killed George Floyd.
Two officers, let's say,
very clearly murdered the guy.
Their legs.
Anyone with two eyes can see that.
You, in a way, are
this gentleman. Yeah, the officer here. He's
what that
confirming
is about anyway. So
he's confirming.
So there can be
George
some
Floyd was murdered.
To that. Sure, if that makes sense.
It does. So let's assume that you've
the
got
state
two
of Minneapolis
officers
is
pulling the legs
defending this
forward,
guy.
essentially employing
This
that
attorney Eric Nelson,
version, so to speak, of the maximal restraint. But then they release and they say.
So I don't know. It's been a crazy summer. I'm gonna stop sharing. It's been a crazy summer. That was last May. We're gonna interview Miguel Guerra. Sorry to start off on a heavy topic, but that's what I do. I just like to talk about things that concern everyone, the world, the things that are happening. As an educator, that's what I do. I just tackle that. Point blank, what happened to George Floyd was evil. There's no two ways about it. It was an evil thing that happened, and I hope that the state of Minneapolis will find that, and that jury will find that as well. I worked in, many of you don't know, but I've worked for the prisons. I've worked as an educator. I taught GED in Rikers Island. I've worked with the Department of Juvenile Justice as an educator for many years. I've worked with cops. I've worked with COs. I've worked with probation officers. And yeah, there are incidents that have occurred that does include restraint. But there's a lot of incidents that can be avoided and unnecessary. I mean, myself included. I was in an altercation many, many years ago. That was on Channel 4. I don't like to bring it up, but it happens. And that involved a student being arrested and multiple students getting involved in. Huge thing. Back a long time ago. That's like almost a decade ago, almost 10 years ago. And I survived. I broke my back. I mean, things happen. When you're dealing with gangs and individuals that are misled into gangs, there's a lot of passion, a lot of emotion. People get hurt. It's a dangerous job. Whether you're a law enforcement agency, whether you're an educator, or you're an educator working in a law enforcement facility, it's dangerous. I've worked, just last year, I was working in Lincoln Hall, which is a really nice. It's weird to use the word nice for a prison, but I would say it was the nicest of the incarcerated sites that I worked at. And it's very emotional. You can't do that kind of work if you don't have a heart or care for the people that you're servicing. And there's young people that are led astray, make bad decisions, do bad things. But you can't abuse them because of those decisions. You can't. I mean, George Floyd may have been a bad guy, made bad decisions, not a bad person. I'm not going to say he's a bad person. I don't know. But he made bad decisions, hypothetically. I don't know. But even so, under the care of police who are trying to apprehend him, they have a responsibility to take care and to handle with care such people. He's not charged with anything. He hasn't committed a crime. At that point, he's just being arrested. And I think in this country, people forget that. Like when I worked in Rikers Island, a lot of the officers treated the inmates like they were guilty, but they're people and they're awaiting sentencing. And the only reason that they're there is because they cannot afford bail. And why can they not afford bail? I've seen Caucasian offenders get a bail of $1,200, and a black offender, a co-defendant, get like same crime, partners in crime, first time arrest, get $50,000. So I'm going to bring on Miguel. Hey, Miguel.
Hey.
How you doing? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I think you have a slight internet delay there.
There we go.
All right, cool. Sorry, I just opened up a little early. We're talking about the George Floyd case since I was watching it, streamed a few seconds of it. And
okay.
It's pretty heavy. Yeah, sorry, it's a somber thing to open up with, but I just felt that it had to be addressed since I come from a criminal justice background, and my take on it. So
Right.
I mean, you're in France, right? Are you in France or are you in Spain now?
No, I'm in France.
You're in France, right?
I haven't been watching too much of it because I still remember Rodney King, and I still remember.
Yes, it brings Rodney King to light. Yeah, it does.
And I remember how crap hit the fan when everything came. I mean, there could be a hung jury in this, and the guy could walk. So, it's kind of tough. I've seen clips. It's tough to watch. Because
it is. It's hard to watch. It is hard to watch. But this is America, right? This is as Childish Gambino likes to sings. It's hard. It's hard. I just caught it by chance. I'm not really a big avid TV watcher. I didn't even know that the trial had begun because I had been consumed in my art. But I do love court trials. I do love watching boring stuff because that's kind of like my background, like I'm not just an educator, but I worked in criminal education, working in secure facilities. But I don't know. I feel that, we'll get into your interview. I'm sorry. But I just feel that my point was right before you got on is that even if you make a bad decision, right? I mean, I always tell my students, they always say, oh, I'm a bad person, because their parents, they'll tell them they're bad or something, because they joined a gang or they committed a crime or whatever the circumstance. And I always just tell them, you're not a bad person. You just made bad decisions. And I think that this officer that killed George Floyd certainly made a bad decision to put his knee on his neck for 9 minutes. But I mean, whatever the case, because they don't really talk about what led them to feel the need to apprehend Floyd. Perhaps there was a misjudgment or whatever. Regardless of that, regardless of what that is, you're still under the care of the Minneapolis police, and they're responsible for you at that point to make sure that you're arrested alive and unharmed and uninjured, and so that you can defend yourself in a trial or get a lawyer or what have you. But they never got to that point. It's like,
no, I mean, a lot of our police force grows out of the slave patrols.
Yeah.
So, and it hasn't really changed since then. And I think we haven't kind of come to grips with the darker side. Very much all the stars and stripes and rah, 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 instead of like, we got a dark side. And we got
a very dark side. A very dark side. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It blows me away. It really blows me away. Mm-hmm. How, you said Rodney King. I mean,
I'm bracing for Rodney King, the 21st century style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he lived. I mean, he lived to tell the tale.
Mm-hmm.
This guy didn't.
The explosion of the cops walking,
mm-hmm.
and how everybody thought that the cops weren't going to walk.
Yeah.
After the video that showed that they clearly went.
Clearly
ballistic.
Just went to town on that guy,
We may be facing the same thing again. I hope we're not.
The riot after, But I am I'm a revolutionary. Mm-hmm. I'm all for riots. I hate to say that. It's a horrible thing to say. I am anti-violence, but I am pro. The reality is that when a people, a nation, have taken so far to the brink of frustration where no one's listening, and these old men in power, let's face it, they're all old, no matter what country you're in, it's a bunch of geezers running the world, are out of touch with society, out of touch with reality. I mean,
you got to always be careful that some of those old geezers aren't trying to get back to old geezers by controlling and inflating the mob.
Yeah, exactly. We saw
that with Trump, with Roger Stone and those guys.
Yeah,
it happened here with the French Revolution.
Yeah,
the French Revolution, most people don't realize, a lot of it was pushed by the middle class, but really it was the mercantile classes from colonies like Haiti who felt that they should get a more piece of a pie. If it wasn't for Haiti, there probably wouldn't have been, like, the wealth from Haiti. There probably wouldn't have been a French Revolution. Of course, it would have got out of hand. Right. And it kind of went to a place where they didn't expect, where they actually abolished slavery in 1794.
Right.
You never know.
But they're still paying for it for this day. Right? They're still paying that debt.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. And in the United States, when Roosevelt came in and took their gold, right, and stole their wealth, same thing.
Yeah, but initially the French Republic had abolished slavery. It was Napoleon in 1802 that brought it back because of the plantation owners.
Right.
So what plays out in a society is very complex, but usually it's rich people at war with each other.
Oh yeah, it's always warring families.
Yeah, very Godfather.
Right. It's just like that's the whole concept of the Christians and the Protestants, right? The Catholics and the Protestants, right? It's like that's all. Louis the 14th divorce or something like that, remarriage. It's like creating the Protestant church, all that stuff. Then you have the IRA passport, terrorist bombings. The unjust killings and oppression of Irish people.
And even before that, you had cousins who, even though they were Catholic, they'd be like, I want my cousin's crap.
Right.
So it's like, and these people never really were from the countries that they said they were from.
exactly.
So they never were English or Spanish or French. They never even spoke the local language. They spoke French.
Right.
Each other up until like recently. So I mean, like
Right.
the English royal family is German, right?
There you go.
So
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
and what kills me is that poor people fight over what rich people have defined the area they live in.
Right.
So they say, you're French, you're Spanish, you're Portuguese, so
Right.
on, whatever label you add to it. And then they say, okay, you have to now fight for me under this label. But meanwhile,
Right.
you're fighting for them to fight their relative. So in
Right.
that sense, Star Wars had it right. One family could screw everything up.
Right.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You're a historian by trade as well, right? I mean,
I'm a history buff. I'm a
Yeah.
history buff. My wife majored in history. I didn't. I majored in film.
But by occupation, don't you also
I do
historical tours? Yeah. So I mean, so you should.
Yeah, yeah. It's wild. It's wild. And the best is reading about. I don't know if you've read. Actually, our mutual friend Gary Cohn. He recommended Black Jacobins to me, and I don't know if you've gotten around to reading it, whatnot, but
no, I have not.
Just the weaselness of like the European powers. As soon as Haiti goes into revolution, right?
Right.
You have the English show up and say, "Hey, man, I can cut you a deal," and then the Spanish showing up, "Hey, you need some weapons?" Because the three were always fighting each other. So sometimes the French would side with the Spanish against the English. Sometimes the English and the Spanish would side against the French. And when you read, like, but this is insane. This doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
And then we, poor people, get roped into fighting for whatever label we label ourselves as because of the area we're born in. But the wealthy don't think that way. They just another chess piece on the board. So I don't
exactly.
I'm kind of cynical.
I'm actually reading The Grand Chess Master that was written in '97, and because ever since 9/11, I remember when I was working in Rikers in 2000, there was a teacher reading it, and he was like, "You got to read this book. This is the book that talks about global hegemony," and I was just like, "Okay." We talked about it at great length. And then 9/11 happens a year later. And actually in the book, he shows me, look, they talk about 9/11 here in 97.
That was Brzezinski.
Brzezinski, yeah.
Zbigniew Brzezinski.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the
devil
himself. A-hole that got us to Afghanistan in the first place.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it was it was all planned out. The whole thing was planned out. And you couldn't even get the book after 9/11 for like a decade. Like the book was going for like over $500. One person was saying it for $1,000. But 21 years later, almost, right? 20 years later, 20 years later, now you can get the book for like $5. Nobody cares, But still reading it, you could still see in 1997 how Brzezinski and how our own government really view the world as who's a major player, who's not a major player. I mean, what just happened under Trump and Turkey? They outlined that in that book. It's outlined as to how they're moving the pieces around. Everything that happened in Afghanistan and in Iraq was outlined in that book in 1997.
Yeah. Also too, and the guy that he was the guy that said that they had to do everything to keep African Americans and Africans from making a friendship.
That's correct. Keeping it destabilized. Yep.
And making sure that we didn't talk to them and all this other stuff. So, but that stuff eventually catches up with you because as time always bears,
it is.
it catches up with you. You can be doing all this Machiavellian stuff, but eventually what makes you strong becomes your own weakness. And it starts happening to you. You lose control. It's insane, but
yeah, it's like, okay. Yeah, so I find that interesting. Yeah, if you get a chance, take a look at that book because still, I mean, they talk about the future of Taiwan and Japan, and if China gets big enough, they already know that we might lose those two countries, but we're trying to keep Japan from aligning with China. That would be a major mistake. And if we lose Taiwan, then we lost that whole region. So,
well, people don't know about the history of China, that it was colonized.
Right.
And it has a long memory. Like 90 some percent of their population were jacked up on opium.
Yeah, exactly.
By the British. We also helped the British. The Major General, Marine Major General, talked about being heavy. He said Capone had nothing on him. And at some point, things catch up with you. Can't always, this idea of forever doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen. China's just catching up to where it used to be. That's all.
Right. Exactly.
People forget that. It was the major manufacturing hub going back to the 1300s for silk and all sorts of stuff. You can go back to the 1700s and you'll read about how we American merchants used to come over here to France, buy a sample of like different linens and stuff, take it to China. So, still there?
Yeah. I'm here. You're breaking up a little bit. But yeah. You have to repeat that last sentence.
So
you have to repeat that last sentence.
They were getting stuff knocked off over in China in the 1700s.
Yeah. Exactly.
The only reason that people wanted to sail over the Atlantic wasn't necessarily to find the Americas, as they say, or any of that. It was to get to Asia, to the markets in Asia, because the Turks in 1453 had cut off, the Silk Road to the Europeans, and Europe was pretty poor in comparison to the rest of the world. So when you start putting in context, it's just a commerce thing. So, but we believe in oxymorons like free markets.
Right, exactly.
Which is like, what? That does, if it's free, it's not a market. It's simple. It's an oxymoron. If it's open to everyone, then no.
And it really isn't. Look what happened with GameStop. It's like,
it's not. It's not. Any network of buying and selling isn't free. That's the point. You have capital or money to buy crap, to sell crap. Simple.
Yeah. Exactly.
Fairy tales.
Exactly. Fairy tales. Yes, that's what this country is built on. There's a lot of fairy tales.
Oh yeah.
And with that, we're gonna get into your comics. That's a nice segue. Let me just we're gonna just add the intro now. Here we go. Like that. All right.
Ooh. I got that. That's a snazzy intro.
You like that?
I like that. That's nice. Yeah, cool.
So here we are. We talked about politics, history, and let's get into comics.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, go right into comic books. That's fun stuff.
That's the great thing I love about talking with you. We always have these interesting conversations.
Right. Right.
We did the adult stuff. Let's get into the fun.
It's obligatory. Got to do that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it is a lot of these podcast shows. They talk about pop culture, movies, whatever, but not many of them touch upon like what the fuck's really going on. like Marvin Gaye be like, what's going on? It's like
right. I think a lot of it is fear right now. taking down a lot of content that doesn't fit within the mainstream. So I think people sort of just stick to, I'll just talk about pop
culture. It's a lot of fear too, right? I think people are afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were clear whenever we start talking about the government, you start chopping up. We say comics and you clear up. The algorithms are, Uh-oh, he froze totally. Let's see. Did we lose you? Look at that. The Facebook algorithms. Can you hear me? Quick, somebody say Mars. He'll come back. Spider-Man. That's a nice Spider-Man shirt you got there, man.
Oh, yeah. This is, when it was Spider-Man and they didn't call him.
It worked. It worked. I said Spider-Man and it started moving again.
Yeah, it's funny because now they just call it Venom. But originally it was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because it was Spider-Man, got the bugs and all that. See, I'm trying to keep this line open so we don't get cut off. Yeah. NSA or whatever.
Right.
I said it. See? There
you go, man. It's the algorithms. Stan Lee. You get better reception. So how did you get into the whole comic book thing?
Just comics, period?
Well, just as a kid, I'm sure you read comics as a kid, right? And then, but like, how did you decide I want to do this? This is what I want to do in life.
Holy crap! I must have been about on the used to drive my brother nuts because he would out.
Right.
Can you hear me?
I could hear you. You paused for a
second. I used to draw on the walls.
You used to draw on the walls? That's cool.
All stuff. And we had my brother's best friend.
Right. Hold on a second. I think you froze again. Hold on a second. You know what? Let me end this broadcast and I'll set up a new one. I'm going to set up a new one. Maybe that'll improve it. I don't know. What do you think? Looks like
that's kind of.
Yeah, I think I'm losing you. I'm going to click on the invite again. Click on the invite again. And then yeah. I'll just tell him to reload. Yeah. Hold on a second. Having technical difficulties. Let's see if that works. We're going to try to reconnect him. Sorry about that. All right, here we go. Let's try that again. He's coming back. Are you back? All right.
Right?
Yeah, I see. I hear you now. Yeah, there you go. So you were writing on the walls, you said, right? Uh-oh. I think we have Houston. We have a problem. Oh, he's in.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I might end the broadcast and reconnect it. Maybe we could try that. We got 3 people watching.
Okay.
Let's see. Sorry, people. So I'm gonna start a new link, everyone, and we'll. And that's okay. That's okay because we're at our 30-minute mark. So. So we're going to come back with Miguel in just a second. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in a new link. So you could disconnect. I'm going to just end this one over here. And then we'll continue. I don't know.